So currently, this MongoDB service is not running in the background. And because of that, when we are trying to connect to MongoDB server from Mongo shell, we are getting this connection error. So now what we want is, we want to start the MongoDB service in the foreground. And to start the MongoDB service in the foreground, we have to run the MongoDB application. So we know that MongoDB server is installed in C drive. So let's go to C drive. There we have to go to program files folder. In the program files folder, we have this MongoDB folder, and inside that we will have the server folder. There we have a folder with MongoDB server version, and in there we have this bin folder, and in this bin folder we have this mongod.exe file. So if you notice here, the extension for this file is .exe. It is an exe file, and when we were running this MongoDB service in the background, there this service was actually executing this mongod.exe file. And also, when we created this service in the background while installing MongoDB server, that time we also specified a data folder and a log folder for MongoDB server. So if I go back to File Explorer, we specified this data folder as the data directory. And this data directory will contain all the data which we are going to store on MongoDB server. So here you can see files related to collections, related to index. So basically, this data directory is the directory where all the data which you are going to store on the local installation of MongoDB server will be saved. Okay, and then we also have this log directory, and inside this log directory all the server activity logs will be generated. So here you can see we have this mongod.log file, and this log file contains all the logs related to server activity. So it is this file where the logs will be added. So for example, here you can see a log message which says automatically disabling TLS 1.0 and TLS 1.1. We have another message which says starting thread pool, and in this way you will see all the log messages logged here. So this mongod.log file, it contains all the server logs. Similarly, when we are going to execute MongoDB server in the foreground, for that we have to execute this mongod.exe file. And while executing this mongod.exe file, we have to specify the data directory where the server data will be stored, and we have to specify the log directory where the logs will be generated. So let's go ahead and let's run this MongoD application manually in the foreground. And since this mongod.exe file is present in a directory which is present inside this program files folder, we have to have administrator privileges in order to run this exe file. So to run this exe file, I'm going to open command prompt in administrator mode. For that, I can type cmd and I can right click on this command prompt option, and I'm going to run it as administrator. So this command prompt window has opened as administrator mode. From here, let me try to run this mongod command. So when we run this mongod command, we are actually trying to execute mongod.exe file. If I run this command, you will see that we have this message which says mongod is not recognized as internal or external command. That's because we are trying to execute this mongod.exe from this file path. Now, in this file path, we do not have mongod.exe. This mongod.exe file is present inside this file path. So let me copy this. Let's go back to command prompt, and if I go inside that file path, for that I can type cd command followed by the folder path where the mongod.exe file is present. Let's move inside that folder, and from here if I try to execute the mongod command, it will be executed because this mongod.exe file is present in this folder. Now before executing this mongod.exe file, we also have to specify the data directory and the log directory. To specify the data directory, here we have to specify a path. So after mongod, let's give a space, and here we have to specify a flag called ---- dbpath. And here we can specify a folder path where we want to store the data of the MongoDB server when we are running it in the foreground. Here you can specify any folder. For example, what you can do is in C drive, you can create a folder called data, and you can specify this data folder as the data directory. But I'm not going to do that. Here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify the same data folder from the installed location as the data directory. So I'm going to copy this data folder path, and I'm going to specify the same path as the data directory. So let me paste that path here. And then we also have to specify the log directory. And to specify that, we have to use -- log path. And after a space, let's specify the log path. So here also, I'm going to use the same log directory as the log path, and in there we have this mongod.log file. So I want to use this mongod.log file as the log file. So all the logs which will be generated when we are running MongoDB server in the foreground, I want to append it to this mongod.log file. Or what you can do is you can specify a completely different file where the logs will be generated when you are running MongoDB server in the foreground. So here I'm going to specify a different file name. So let me copy this path. I want to generate the log file in the same path, but in a different file. So here let's specify the file path. In there, let me specify a file name, which I'll call as mongo log. And the extension of this file should be .log. And then I'm also going to specify a third flag, which is -- append log. Or actually it should be -- log append. Okay. Now let's try to run this command, and you will see now the MongoDB server is running in the foreground. So now if I go to command prompt here, and here if I run this mongosh command again, and if I press enter, now you will see that now we are able to connect to MongoDB server. So now MongoDB server is running in the foreground, and for that we have executed this mongod command, and we also specified the db path and the log path, and we are able to connect to the MongoDB server using Mongo shell. Now what we also want to do is currently I will be able to run this mongod command only after going inside this folder where the mongod.exe file is present. But what I want is I should be able to execute this mongod.exe file from any folder in this system. And for that, what we need to do is we need to add, and you will also see that now when we have started this MongoDB server in the foreground, in this log folder, a new file called mongolog has been generated. Okay, and this file will contain all the logs of the server activity when we are running MongoDB server in the foreground. But when we will run MongoDB server as a background service, there the logs will be generated inside this file. All right, so what I was telling is if we want to execute this mongod.exe file from any folder in this system, we need to add this path to the environment variable paths. And for that, I can copy this path, and let's search for environment variables. Okay, and here you can click on this environment variables button. Here I want to add a system environment variable. And which system environment variable I want to add? I want to add a path. For that, I can select this path and I can click on this edit button. And now here you will see that we already have some paths added here. In the same way, we can go ahead and we can add the path of this mongod.exe file. For that, let's click on new, and let's paste the path which I copied. So it is C program files MongoDB server 8.3/bin, and inside this bin folder we have mongod.exe file. So here we don't need to specify the file name, we just have to specify the folder where the exe file is present. And let's simply click on OK. Let's click on OK here as well, and let's click on OK. And in this way, Now we have added the path of this mongod.exe file to system environment variables. And now we should be able to execute this mongod command from any directory in this system. So let me go ahead and let me copy this command and let me stop MongoDB server by pressing Ctrl C. So now MongoDB server has stopped. It is not running in the foreground also. And that's why now if I try to, let's say, list all the databases by running this show dbs command, we should get an error. You see, here we have this Mongo network error because now from Mongo shell, we are not able to connect to MongoDB server. But now let me go ahead and let me restart the MongoDB server in the foreground. But this time I'm going to execute it from the C drive. So for that, let's move to C drive. But before that, since we have added something in the environment variable, first I'll have to close this command prompt window and I will open that command prompt window again in the administrator mode. And now environment variables will be taken into effect. Now from here, from this path, if I try to execute MongoDB command, so here, if I execute this mongod command by specifying this db path and this log path, we should be able to execute it, even though this mongod.exe is not present inside this folder. So if I execute this command, you see, we do not have any error. And now MongoDB server is running in the foreground. So let's go back to Mongo shell and let me try to execute this show dbs command again. And this time you will see that it has listed all the databases present in the MongoDB server. But I'm not going to keep running MongoDB server in the foreground. So for that, I can simply go ahead and close this command prompt window from where we are running MongoDB server in the foreground. And I'm going to run MongoDB server in the background because we don't want to start the MongoDB server in the foreground every time we want to work with MongoDB. So I'm simply going to run it as a background service. In that case, MongoDB server will be running as a background service always. So we will not have to start it again and again. And now let's go back to Mongo shell. Let me clear everything here and let me run mongosh command. Or before that, let me first stop the Mongo shell by pressing Ctrl C. Let me clear the terminal again and again let me run mongosh command. And now again we are connected to MongoDB server, but this time we are connected to MongoDB server from Mongo shell because MongoDB server is running as a background service. So here the MongoDB server is running as a background service. So I hope now you understand how you can run MongoDB server in the foreground if the MongoDB server is not running as a background service or if the background service was not created for the MongoDB server. So from the next video, let's start working with MongoDB server from Mongo shell and let's create our first database in the MongoDB server.